My beloved child, stop scrolling for just a moment, because what is waiting for you in these words is connected to something that has just shifted in the heart of your soulmate. You did not arrive here by accident. You were guided here at the exact moment when an unspoken truth began pressing against the silence between you. Pause here. Breathe slowly. What you are about to hear was meant to find you before doubt could convince you that nothing was changing. Something big has happened. Your soulmate needs to talk to you immediately, but the reason is not what you have been imagining. This is not another ordinary conversation. This is not a casual message they can postpone until tomorrow. Something has awakened inside them, something powerful enough to interrupt their routine, disturb their sleep, and force them to look honestly at everything they have been avoiding. They have reached a moment they can no longer escape. Stay with these words, because the deepest part has not yet been revealed. There is something your soulmate has been carrying privately, and until now, they believed silence was the safest choice. They thought remaining quiet would protect you. They thought hiding their emotions would keep the connection from becoming complicated. But what happened recently changed that belief completely. A moment came when they suddenly understood what your absence would truly mean. It may have happened while they were alone in a familiar room. It may have happened when a song reminded them of you, when someone spoke a phrase you once said, or when they saw something that carried your energy so strongly that they could no longer pretend they were unaffected. The outside world may have looked completely ordinary, but inside them, everything stopped. For one breathless moment, they saw the truth. They saw the future continuing without the conversation they have been delaying. They saw days passing, opportunities closing, and the distance between you becoming harder to cross. And in that vision, they felt a loss so real that it shook them awake emotionally. That is why this message feels urgent. Do not move away yet. Something is waiting for you near the end of this revelation, and it explains why your soulmate's heart has become impossible for them to ignore. What happened was not merely emotional. It felt spiritual. It felt as though an invisible hand lifted the veil from their eyes and showed them the consequences of staying silent. Your soulmate has been trying to appear composed. They may have seemed distant, uncertain, distracted, or strangely quiet. Perhaps you wondered whether they cared at all. Perhaps you questioned whether the connection was only meaningful to you. But beneath what you could see, they were wrestling with feelings they did not know how to control. They were afraid that speaking would change everything. And now they are more afraid that silence will. This is the turning point. Something inside them has crossed a line. They cannot return to the version of themselves that acted untouched. They cannot forget what they felt when the possibility of losing you became real. The realization entered deeply, and now it follows them everywhere. They feel it in the morning before the noise of the day begins. They feel it when their phone lights up and your name is not there. They feel it in crowded places where no one else carries the familiar comfort they associate with you. They feel it in quiet moments when their heart asks one question again and again: what if I waited too long? Do not skip what comes next, because the answer to that question is what created the urgency you are sensing now. Your soulmate recently became aware of something they had refused to admit. They do not simply miss you. They miss who they become when they feel connected to you. Around others, they may perform strength. They may laugh, speak confidently, and act as though life is moving forward without complication. But with you, something deeper happens. You reach a place inside them that most people never see. You make them feel understood without forcing them to explain everything. You make their guarded heart remember what it feels like to be recognized. And that recognition frightened them. It frightened them because real connection requires honesty. Real connection removes masks. Real connection asks a person to stop running from their own heart. For a long time, your soulmate may have believed they needed more time. More certainty. More courage. More proof. They kept telling themselves they would speak when the timing was perfect. But the recent event showed them that perfect timing may never arrive in the form they expected. Sometimes the perfect moment is created by truth becoming too heavy to carry alone. That moment has arrived. Your soulmate has something to tell you about why they pulled away, why they hesitated, or why their behavior did not match the depth of what they felt. There is a missing piece you were never given. Without that piece, you may have interpreted their silence as rejection. You may have believed their distance meant indifference. But what if the distance was created by fear rather than lack of feeling? What if they stepped back because the connection became more important than they were prepared to admit? What if the reason they seemed uncertain was because they felt too much, not too little? Stay until the end, because there is another layer beneath this, and it is bigger than fear. Your soulmate has been confronted by a truth concerning their own life. Something they once considered stable no longer feels stable. A plan they believed they would follow no longer fits the person they are becoming. This change may have come through a sudden conversation, an unexpected discovery, or a quiet realization that arrived without warning. Whatever form it took, it forced them to ask whether they were living honestly. And when they asked that question, your face entered their mind. Not because you are responsible for their choices, but because you represent the truth they have been avoiding. You represent the path that requires courage. You represent a conversation that could alter everything. You represent the possibility of a life in which they no longer hide from what they genuinely feel. That is why they need to talk to you immediately. The words they have been rehearsing are no longer small. This is not simply, "I miss you." This is not merely, "I have been thinking about you." There is more behind it. There is a confession connected to a decision. Your soulmate is standing at the edge of a choice. One direction allows them to remain inside what is familiar, even if it leaves their heart unfulfilled. The other direction asks them to step toward truth, even though they cannot predict what will happen afterward. They are realizing that certainty is not always a sign of destiny. Sometimes certainty is only the comfort of staying where nothing meaningful can reach you. But you reached them. You reached them even when they tried to close the door. You reached them through memory. You reached them through silence. You reached them in moments when they believed they had successfully distracted themselves. And something big happened when they finally stopped resisting that truth. They admitted your importance to themselves. This may sound simple, but for them it was enormous. Until that moment, they could keep everything undefined. They could call it confusion. They could call it timing. They could call it imagination. They could tell themselves they would eventually forget. But now they know they cannot continue lying to their own heart. They know your presence changed something within them. They know your absence reveals something too. And they know the conversation they owe you can no longer remain unfinished. My child, there is a reason you have felt strange emotional shifts recently. Perhaps you suddenly thought of this person without any obvious cause. Perhaps your heart became heavy and then unexpectedly calm. Perhaps you dreamed of a conversation, heard their name, or felt that something unseen was moving toward you. Within this fictional spiritual story, imagine heaven quietly arranging a mirror between two hearts. Neither heart is being forced. Neither path is being controlled. But both are being invited to see clearly. Your soulmate looked into that mirror. And what they saw changed them. They saw how often they had asked for a genuine connection, then became frightened when one appeared. They saw how they had prayed for someone who could understand them, then created distance when you began to understand them too well. They saw how they wanted loyalty, honesty, and emotional depth, yet hesitated when the connection demanded those same qualities from them. The realization humbled them. It also awakened them. Now they want to tell you what was happening behind the scenes. They want to explain the internal battle you could not see. They want to admit that their quietness was never as peaceful as it looked. There were moments they almost contacted you. They opened the message. They wrote a few words. They erased them. They imagined your response. They worried you would not believe them. They wondered whether they had already damaged the connection beyond repair. But each time they tried to move on without speaking, the truth returned even louder. And then something happened that made waiting feel impossible. Do not skip now. This is where the mystery becomes deeper. Your soulmate recently heard or discovered something connected to you. It may have been a detail about your life, a change in your circumstances, or the possibility that you were preparing to move forward without them. They may not know the full truth, but what they heard was enough to awaken urgency. Suddenly, they realized you would not remain suspended forever. You have a life. You have choices. You have a heart that deserves clarity. You have a future that will continue whether they find courage or not. This truth struck them more strongly than they expected. They had quietly assumed there would always be another chance. Another day. Another opening. Another moment when they could finally explain. But what happened showed them that some doors do not remain open forever merely because a person is afraid to walk through them. The thought of that door closing changed everything. Now they are not only thinking about what they feel. They are thinking about what they are willing to do. That distinction matters. Feelings can remain hidden for years. Intentions can remain unspoken. But action reveals whether a person is ready to honor the truth inside them. Your soulmate is approaching that test. The conversation they want is not meant to manipulate you or demand an immediate answer. It is meant to release what has been trapped in silence. They want to place the truth before you and finally allow you to decide with full understanding. They know you may have questions. They know you may carry disappointment. They know you may not respond exactly as they hope. But something inside them is saying, tell the truth anyway. Because honesty is no longer about controlling the result. It is about ending the confusion. It is about giving the connection the respect it was denied when fear became louder than courage. It is about admitting that something significant happened between you, even if neither of you fully understood it at the time. Stay with me, because one more revelation is unfolding. Your soulmate has been comparing every connection, conversation, and emotional experience to what they felt with you. They may never admit this easily, but they have noticed the difference. Others may have offered attention, but not recognition. Others may have offered company, but not peace. Others may have spoken attractive words, but their presence did not reach the hidden places within your soulmate's heart. You did. That does not make you responsible for saving them. It does not mean you should ignore your boundaries or accept less than honesty. It means your connection became a reference point they could not erase. And recently, they understood that what they were searching for elsewhere was something they had already encountered with you. That understanding brought regret. Not hopeless regret, but awakening regret. The kind that asks, why did I make something precious feel uncertain? The kind that says, I should have spoken when my heart first knew. The kind that creates movement. Your soulmate wants to tell you that they noticed your patience. They noticed how you tried to understand. They noticed the moments you became quieter because their inconsistency hurt you. They noticed the strength it took for you to stop chasing answers they should have willingly given. And though they may have acted unaware, they were not unaware. They saw the change in your energy. They felt the moment you began protecting your peace. That is another reason the urgency has become so intense. They know you are not standing in the same emotional place where they left you. You have been changing. You have been learning that love should not require you to abandon yourself. You have been discovering that spiritual connection does not excuse confusion, disrespect, or endless waiting. You have been reclaiming parts of your heart that became exhausted from unanswered questions. And your soulmate can feel that transformation. Something huge is waiting for you in this truth. The shift inside you is what forced the shift inside them. Not because you manipulated them. Not because you tried to make them jealous. Not because you performed distance as a game. But because the moment you began honoring your own worth, the old pattern between you could no longer continue. They could either rise into honesty or watch you outgrow the version of the connection built on uncertainty. This is the choice before them now. And something big happened when they realized you might choose peace over potential. They understood that love cannot survive forever on almost. Almost speaking. Almost choosing. Almost committing. Almost becoming ready. The word almost began to feel unbearable. They do not want to be remembered as the person who felt deeply but acted too late. They do not want your story to become a lesson they carry into every future relationship. They want a chance to tell you what was real. But there is still something they have not fully decided how to say. This is the secret at the center of the conversation. Your soulmate is not only preparing to confess an emotion. They are preparing to reveal what triggered the sudden change. They learned something that connects your past, their fear, and the future they have secretly imagined with you. It arrived unexpectedly. At first, they resisted it. Then they questioned it. Then they returned to it again and again until denial was no longer possible. The revelation showed them that the barrier between you was never what they claimed it was. It was not only timing. It was not only circumstances. It was not only distance. The true barrier was a belief they carried about themselves. Deep inside, your soulmate feared they would disappoint you. They feared that if you saw all of them, their uncertainty, their old wounds, their mistakes, their hidden insecurities, you would eventually decide they were not enough. So they protected themselves by never fully stepping forward. They chose ambiguity because ambiguity delayed the risk of rejection. But it also delayed the possibility of love. Recently, they understood that by trying to avoid being abandoned, they had behaved in a way that could cause them to lose you. That realization broke something open. Now they want to speak before fear rebuilds the wall. They want to say, "I was not silent because you meant nothing. I was silent because you meant more than I knew how to handle." They want to say, "I acted uncertain because I was afraid of how certain my heart had become." They want to say, "I kept waiting for the fear to disappear, but now I understand courage means speaking while the fear is still there." Yet even these words are not the whole confession. There is something more specific. Something connected to what happened very recently. Something that made them believe the universe was giving them one final opportunity to stop hiding. Perhaps it was a dream so vivid they woke with your name in their thoughts. Perhaps it was a conversation with someone who unknowingly described the exact mistake they were making. Perhaps they encountered a sign, an old message, a photograph, or a memory at the precise moment they were trying to convince themselves to let go. Whatever occurred, it felt personal. It felt immediate. It felt like a question placed directly before their soul. Will you continue running, or will you finally tell the truth? Your soulmate has not been able to forget that moment. They have replayed it. They have searched for another explanation. They have tried to dismiss it as coincidence. But every path of thought has led them back to you. And now, even as these words reach you, they may be closer to speaking than you realize. Do not become afraid. Do not place your life on hold. Do not treat every notification as a prophecy. Remain grounded in your peace. This story is not asking you to surrender your judgment. It is reminding you that clarity is stronger than fantasy, and honest action matters more than hidden emotion. When the conversation comes, listen not only to their words but to the maturity behind them. Do they take responsibility? Do they respect your feelings? Do they offer clarity rather than another beautiful mystery? Do their actions support what they claim? Your heart can remain open without becoming unprotected. Your compassion can remain strong without ignoring your boundaries. This is part of your spiritual growth too. You are not being prepared merely to hear a confession. You are being prepared to recognize whether that confession carries truth. And here is why the timing feels so unusual. Your soulmate believes the next conversation could determine the direction of the connection. They are not approaching it casually. They know something must change after the truth is spoken. Either the connection will be given a more honest foundation, or both hearts will finally be released from the uncertainty that has kept them suspended. That is why they are nervous. That is why the words feel difficult. That is why something big has happened inside them. They have reached the point where truth matters more than maintaining control. But there is one final detail they are still afraid to reveal. It is the reason the conversation became urgent today rather than next week, next month, or someday in the distant future. They discovered that a decision involving you may already be moving forward. A decision they did not expect. A decision that made them realize time was no longer waiting for their courage. And when they understood what that decision could mean, they whispered something about you that they had never admitted aloud before. Those words changed the entire direction of what comes next. But the exact words they whispered, and the decision that forced them to finally speak, are still waiting behind the door they are about to open.